What's up, everybody? I'm Guy. This is Just Bluefish Watch Reviews, and today we're doing the Sunday with Guy episode. Sunday with Guy is a show that I'm trying to do anyway, every single week, where mostly I respond to viewers' questions, comments, emails, and posts, whether it's here on YouTube or over on my Just Bluefish Watch Club's Facebook group. I also sometimes just ramble and rant about stuff that's on my mind. Today, I'm going to mostly be responding to comments that you guys left for me on a video that I posted last week about the ranking of the 15 affordable watch brands that I did. A lot of people actually did enjoy my rankings, but there was a lot of people that did not agree with what I said were the best of the best amongst the affordable watch brands. Now, before we get into that, I wanted to mention what's coming up this next week. First of all, you can probably see I am wearing a Zodiac Super Seawolf, white and blue. It is their new ceramic model. I'm going to have a review on this watch coming up real soon. I've got a video coming up that I've been wanting to do for a while now, comparing the Seamaster Professional 300 Diver and the Seamaster 300 Heritage model. I've got those two watches right here in my watch box. Really looking forward to doing that video. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet, but I have a Seiko SPB 383, I think is the reference number. I'm gonna have a video on that coming up. So a bunch of stuff coming this week. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you click that bell notification so you get notified when those videos come out. With all that said, let's go ahead and jump into the questions and comments from last week's video.
I am fully supportive of your decision to B-tier Seiko, Guy. They are not good value for money nowadays, especially when you consider how many other brands have caught up with them for quality, interesting designs, bracelets, for similar or less money. I have my SARB 035 and my SKX 009. The rest of my Seikos, I sold. And the last Seiko product I bought was an Orient Kamasu. I refused to pay more than $500 for a Seiko.
All right, so yeah, a lot of people did not like the fact that I put Seiko in the B tier, not S tier, not A tier, but in fact B tier. But this person, who's a viewer of the channel, has been leaving comments for me for years, actually supportive of my decision to B tier Seiko. Here's the thing about Seiko. Awesome designs. By and large, they make fantastic looking watches. The quality is decent. It was excellent for the money, but now it's decent for the money. And the reason I say that is because the prices of Seiko watches have been going up and up and up over the last 5, 6, 7 years. The quality of the watches has not gone up an equal amount. Quality control on Seiko watches is still a little bit hit or miss. And if the prices are going to go up, in my mind, the quality has to go up as well. It's not that they're bad quality, but they have a lot of quality control problems. Very frequently, you're going to get watches with misaligned bezels, misaligned chapter rings. Bracelets are maybe not a quality control problem, but a design problem. Generally, their bracelets are lesser quality than you can get from other independent and micro brands at the same price points. I've had significant problems with the accuracy of their movements over the years. Me personally, when it comes to 7S, 4R, and 6R movements, and I've had experience with dozens of them, the timekeeping and the accuracy that I've experienced from those movements has been anywhere from poor to outright appalling. I have had some that kept time fairly well initially, but then over time, they just got worse and worse and worse. So I have all of these issues with a brand that I do absolutely love. I do love their designs. I love their watches. I love a lot of things about Seiko. But because of all of the issues, yeah, it's a B tier brand for me until they shape up.
I have 30 watches. Having 2 watches would bore me to death. Everyone is different.
So this is a comment, and it's not from that last video, where we'll get to more of those, though, don't worry. But this one was on a video about building a perfect watch collection, and what do I think is the perfect number of watches for a watch collection? I said it might be 2, it might be 3. 2 or 3 watches would be perfect for me, and I think probably for most people, whether they realize it or not, only need 2 or 3 watches. This comment, though, I have 30 watches. Having 2 would bore me to death. I can't believe, or not believe, that's not the right word. I can't imagine having 30 watches. I've had about a dozen That was the biggest my collection has ever gotten. And I found that to be a little bit obnoxious. And look, if you like lots of watches in your collection, I'm not saying you're obnoxious. I'm just saying that it felt obnoxious to me to have that many watches. To literally have a box of watches, look down at that box, and go, I haven't worn that watch in 6 months. And I paid $800 for it, or I paid $8,000 for it. Yeah, that just annoyed the ever-loving crap out of me. I couldn't stand having watches that I wasn't wearing. And I'm the type of person where when I put a watch on, and of course I take it off at night when I sleep, but when I put a watch on, when I go through the process of winding it up and setting it, I'll wear that watch for weeks at a time, at a minimum. And sometimes I wear it for months at a time. So I don't get to all of my watches when I have a big collection. If I had a collection of 30 watches like this viewer, it might be years before I wore some of them. And in my mind, I just don't see the point in owning watches that I'm basically not wearing.
Knocked Timex down for being low quality when an Apple Watch will literally stop working by design on 3 to 5 years due to a lack of software update and security updates by the manufacturer.
Now, going back to that tier list video, I did knock Timex down a little bit because I've had quality control issues with their watches, like watches breaking. And, they're affordable watches, $20, $30 Timex Expedition type watches, crowns breaking, stuff like that. Yeah, it's just an issue that I've had with Timex. And it's an issue with Timex that a lot of people that I've talked to have had. But, they probably make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of watches per year. So yeah, some stinkers are going to get out of the manufacturing process, of course. Now, be that as it may, this user sort of criticizes me because I put Apple Watch in particular up in the S tier class because I think it's such a great device. And yes, it's a watch, a great watch and a great device. And he's basically criticizing my decision to put Apple up at S tier but knock Timex down when Apple has built-in obsolescence, right? We know when we buy a smartwatch that it is got a shelf life of 3 to 5 years probably before A, the battery fails and you can't replace it, or B, due to the lack of software updates, it's just no longer compatible with your devices and the ecosystem. Here's the difference. Any watch that is prone to breaking, you can't plan for that. It just happens, and then, I don't want to say it ruins your day because that's a little melodramatic, but it's just a crappy situation. It just breaks and you're out of a watch. At best, you might be able to send it in for repair. At worst, you're throwing it in the garbage. With a smartwatch, and in particular an Apple Watch, I know, okay, every 3 or 4 or 5 years or whatever that number might be exactly, I'm going to spend another $300 and I'm going to get a new one because the obsolescence of that device, just like my cell phone, the obsolescence of this device is part of the design. And I'm okay with going into a transaction knowing that in 5 years, this is going to be no longer useful and I'm going to need a new one. I'm not okay with going into a transaction, at least not as much. I'm willing to take the risk if the price is right, but we'll basically just say I'm not really pleased about the prospect of going into the transaction not knowing when the device is going to render itself useless, like Timexes can sometimes do when they break. There's a big difference there. You have to see that distinction. Planned obsolescence is okay because it's upfront and you know it's coming. A poor quality watch that just breaks unexpectedly is just a shitty situation.
At $9,000, whose first thought isn't immediately what Rolex, Omega, or other top 5 luxury watch could I get instead? Seems a tough bracket to compete in. Should have priced it at $50,000.
So here's a comment from a video that I did recently on the Bremont Supernova, right? Yeah, the Supernova H1 generation. And this is from Bob from Atlanta. He's a buddy of mine. He had a really insightful, yeah. He had an insightful comment. He mentions, first of all, he doesn't particularly like the design. That's not the important part. At $9,000, whose first thought isn't immediately what Rolex, Omega, or other top-tier luxury watch could I get instead? And then he goes on to say they should have priced it at $50,000. And yeah, that's actually an insightful and an interesting idea. Should these brands really be competing with the likes of Omega, Tudor, Rolex, and Grand Seiko, like Bremont, and there's many, many others, but we're going to stick to them because that's specifically what this comment is about. Would Bremont be better if they just priced that watch at $30 or $40 or $50,000? They would sell a whole lot less of them, but they might make more money in the long run. A lot of brands make watches that are probably just about as equal in quality as that Bremont Supernova, but they sell it for $30 and $40 and $50,000 instead of selling it for $7 or $8 or $9,000. It's not a bad strategy. And for most people, they're going to say, like, yeah, why would I buy this $9,000 Bremont Supernova, which is a cool watch? I liked it a lot. But why would someone buy that when they could get an Omega, Tudor, Rolex, I don't know, any number of other like top tier luxury brands that aren't ultra high end luxury? Absolutely, it's a good question. That said, let's say you have a big collection of watches. Let's say you have all the Rolexes you want. Let's say you have all the Omegas you want. I've got a Seamaster, I've got a Submariner, I've got a Speedmaster, I've got a Datejust, I've got a Tudor Black Bay 58. I'm good, right? I don't need any more. I've got a Grand Seiko Snowflake. But I want something new. Well, then you start looking at these other brands. You start looking at brands like Breitling. You start looking, which is a great brand. Like, I'm not knocking Breitling, but it's not on the same caliber as these aforementioned brands. You start looking at brands like Breitling or, in this case, Bremont. That's when I think people start to entertain the idea. Or if they just absolutely love the design, if they absolutely love the look and the style, and they have some sort of connection with the watch, that's when they say, I just like it better than a Submariner. I just like it better than a Seamaster. And yeah, interesting question. I wonder if they could get away with selling watches for really big money just to get out of having to compete directly with brands like Rolex and Omega. And if they could get away with it, is it a good idea? I don't really know.
I definitely feel you should have put Seiko in the S list. No watch brand has the cult following Seiko has, other than maybe Casio/G-Shock. Orient is good, but doesn't belong above Seiko. Hell, Seiko owns them.
Another comment about how I didn't put Seiko in the S tier. And, this comment is true. There's no watch brand that has a cult following like Seiko, other than maybe Casio or G-Shock. Yeah. You're not wrong. Seiko has a huge cult following, and that's why they're even on the list, because it's a great brand and lots of fans, and it's worth talking about Seiko. It's worth considering them. But there's just so many problems with their quality control and with their movements and with their pricing model that, no, I just can't put Seiko in the S tier. We could argue maybe they belong in A tier, but I'm very comfortable with considering them a B tier watch brand. And they probably have some A and S tier models, but as a whole brand, they're not S tier, not anymore. Maybe they were 5, 6, 7 years ago, but no, I just don't agree with that. That said, there's nothing wrong with a watch brand being listed as a B tier watch brand, right? Like, it's not bad. They're still good watches. I would still highly recommend them to people, despite the shortcomings. But you have to acknowledge that they do have shortcomings, and those shortcomings, you can't put a brand in S tier, because S tier is like flawless.
The Batman is more versatile.
Here's a comment from a video that I posted a long time ago. It was a video comparing the Rolex GMT Master Batman to the Pepsi. And this comment says, the Batman is more versatile. I don't know why I chose this one to include in this week's video. I guess I just kind of wanted to talk about the GMTs, because when the GMT Master 2 Pepsi in stainless steel came out, what was it, like 5 years ago? I went down to the Rolex authorized dealer here in my town, and I said, put me on that list, good sir. I would like to buy one of those. 5 years later, I've never gotten the phone call. I have purchased a Submariner from that dealer. I have purchased a Explorer from that dealer. I purchased a Cartier tank for my wife from that dealer. Yet still, no call for any other Rolex watches. Pretty shitty, if I do say so myself. I'm still waiting for that Pepsi. And is the Batman more versatile vis-a-vis what this comment is mentioning? I don't know. I don't care. I just wanted to complain about the fact that I can't get a freaking call on a GMT Master 2 Pepsi, and it's been 5 freaking years.
An Apple wrist computer is not a watch. It's a computer one can wear on the wrist. It is obsolete the second that the software that runs it or the grid collapses, whereas my Omega Seamaster will continue to run for many generations. To say that the Apple Ultra is the best tool watch that currently exists is an utter joke. You have lost all credibility as a watch reviewer. Unsubscribed, all uppercase letters, R.
All right, so here's a comment complaining about the fact that I put the Apple Watch up on S tier, or that I probably even included it in this ranking discussion. First of all, yes, an Apple Watch is a watch. It counts. Is it also a wrist computer like this person says? Yeah, I mean, it's a technology device. It's an amazing technology device. It's, I think I had said, like practically the best tool watch ever invented because of all of the stuff it can do. And the Apple Watch Ultra is maybe the best because of how rugged and durable it is, on top of the fact that it has so many functions. But this person kind of said something that I gotta touch base on. It's a little ridiculous. The Apple Watch is going to be obsolete the second that the software that runs it or the grid collapse, whereas my Omega Seamaster will continue to run for many generations. I, sir, call bullshit on that. Your Omega Seamaster is not going to run for many generations unless you keep getting it serviced. And unless you can service it yourself with no power grid, you're not going to get it serviced. It's going to last about as long as an Apple Watch is going to last if you have access to electricity. And if you don't have access to electricity, you know what? You got way, way bigger problems than whether or not your watch works. You're basically going to die in a really short amount of time. So whether or not you're wearing an Apple Watch or a Seamaster in this case is absolutely irrelevant. It does not matter.
Isn't the reason that Bremont doesn't use COSC because they're not Swiss?
All right, going back to that Bremont video real quick, I had to mention this comment. So yeah, in the video for Bremont, I mentioned that they have this H1 testing specification for their watch movements to give it chronometer-like accuracy. And, I commented in the video, yeah, it's not COSC, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be COSC. And a lot of people said, like, oh, it's just a cheap move for them to avoid doing COSC. In the comments, people said this, and they're just passing the expense on to the customers, and they're making more money, blah, blah, blah. This comment pointed out, like, yeah, only Swiss brands can do COSC certification. So Bremont, being a British watchmaker, isn't even eligible to do COSC. That's probably the main reason why, not the only reason, but it's probably the main reason why they aren't submitting their watch movements to COSC. And I didn't even think of that when I was making that video and talking about it. But good point by Remus 2001. That one slipped past me.
The Citizen NJ0150 Suyosa is mechanical.
In my ranking video, of course, I put Citizen on the list of affordable watch brands that I was going to rank because they're a great watch brand. And in that video, I said something about their lack of mechanical movements. And I was, A, being a little bit facetious, and B, a little bit uninformed. I was saying something to the fact of predominantly they make quartz-based movements, and I had personally never even seen a mechanical watch by them. And that was kind of a shame because we all like mechanical watches. And a lot of people read that as like, I didn't know that they didn't make mechanical watches. And this particular viewer pointed out the new Citizen NJ0150 Suyosa, which I wasn't aware of that one. But of course, I know Citizen owns the Miyota mechanical movement watch brand. And while I have not ever seen any of their mechanical movement-based watches in person, I've only ever seen quartz-based eco-drive watches in person, I could surmise that, sure, they probably do have, at a minimum, some mechanical and automatic watches in their catalog. Again, I've just never seen them. The type of stuff that I have seen is the Nighthawk and the ProMaster Diver Quartz and a handful of other Citizen watches. And they were all, eco-drive based watches. So it's not that I didn't know that they don't have mechanical watches. It's that I just never really bothered to look into it because the watches that they do have that I like, that I'm aware of, are great watches, and they're all quartz-based. That's the bottom line. All right, guys, well, I guess that is going to wrap this one up today. Again, stay tuned for this coming week. We're going to have a bunch of great videos, including this Zodiac Super Seawolf ceramic white and blue version. I've also got two other versions, two other colorways of this. So we're going to be seeing 3 of these watches. Don't forget, we're also going to do the Seamaster Shootout, the Pro Diver 300M versus the Seamaster 300 Heritage. That's going to be a really cool video. And then there's that Seiko SPB 383, if I'm not mistaken, which I still have to unbox. I haven't even gotten it out of the box yet. So yeah, again, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like this video if you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions of your own, go ahead and leave those, and next week I'll try to touch on the more interesting ones. So if you do have a comment or a question, make sure it's interesting, and if it is, I'll include it in next week's video. All of that said, yeah, I'm going to wrap this one up for today. Say thanks for tuning in, and until the next one, bye now.